So today we are turning our attention from, the global stage to something deeply personal. We're going to be engaging with source material that's, it's intensely focused on self-agency and personal transformation.
Right.
Specifically, we're diving into excerpts from The Sovereign Human Project, Graduating to Your True Self, which is this really powerful call to action from its founder, Alia. So our mission today is to give you a definitive shortcut to understanding this pivotal moment of change. We really need to unpack the very real and often hidden symptoms that signal you're outgrowing your life.
The whole structure.
The whole structure, exactly. We have to define what this transition to becoming a sovereign human looks like and critically analyze this profound sense of urgency that Alia says is happening right now.
And what we're really doing here is we're synthesizing these internal signals with an external philosophy. So if you feel that deep, almost unbearable friction, that sense that the success, the friendships, the life you meticulously built suddenly feels too tight, too restrictive. This deep dive is essential.
It's a sign.
It is. The source material argues this friction isn't a sign of failure. It's an activation. It's the signpost identifying the person who, in their words, is ready to be the one chosen to break the cycle.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately because the source material, it doesn't waste time. It jumps straight into this highly relatable internal conflict. It starts with the feeling of being fundamentally different. It asks you, the listener, do you feel like the different one in your family or community? Not because you don't love them, but because you have this internal clarity that means you can't pretend anymore that everything is normal.
Right. When you know deep down that the structures or the conversations or the expectations are just fundamentally misaligned with truth.
Exactly.
That internal realization is the philosophical starting pistol. It's that moment where self-loyalty becomes stronger than, say, social compliance. It validates this profound isolation a lot of people feel when they start operating from a higher level of truth.
So the journey doesn't start with some big external crisis.
No, not at all. It starts with an internal inability to lie anymore.
And the most painful way that shows up is often in the roles we play. The sources talk specifically about the exhaustive performance of roles like the achiever or the perfectionist.
Not a strong way.
The strong one, yeah. The person everyone relies on to hold it all together. The source claims that the person ready for this is someone who knows they've mastered that performance, but are now just profoundly, bone-wearily ready to stop.
And the mastering of the role is so key. Most people don't seek this kind of sovereignty until they have successfully climbed that ladder of external validation.
They have to get to the top first.
They do. And then they realize the effort required to maintain that approved identity, the mask, is just unsustainable. Think about the costs of being the strong one. You have to suppress your own vulnerability, you can never ask for help, and you develop this almost pathological need to anticipate and manage everyone else's emotional states just to keep the performance going.
Wow.
So that readiness to stop performing, it's the realization that the cost of external approval is the loss of your internal self.
And Alia uses this incredibly vivid metaphor for the burden that this role player is carrying. She argues that often it's not even their burden to begin with.
She dives right into this concept of carrying an invisible backpack of worries or fears that actually belong to your parents or grandparents.
Okay.
And this is where that synthesis of self-help and, real psychological insight becomes so powerful. It suggests that many of our constant anxieties, financial fear, insecurity about worthiness,
The things that are always there in the background.
exactly, they're just inherited emotional programs. We're running software that was written during a previous generation's crisis. And to connect this to the listener, how do you tell which worry is yours and which is inherited? Alia suggests you look for the anxieties that are disproportionate to your current reality.
Okay, so give me an example.
Well, if you have stable finances but you constantly panic about impending poverty, that might be your grandparents' Depression-era fear talking. If you can never settle into happiness because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, you might be carrying the trauma of a parent who experienced a sudden loss.
That reframe is just immensely powerful because it changes everything. It's not about fixing a flaw in you.
No.
It's about recognizing that you are the one mature enough to finally separate yourself from an outdated operating system.
Absolutely. The source reassures you. If you're nodding yes to these feelings, you are not broken or ungrateful. You are waking up. You are not destroying the family's structure. You are pruning the family or community's tree. And pruning is a necessary strategic act. It means sacrificing the dead or misdirected branches so that the whole organism can thrive. The act of sovereignty is that painful but ultimately essential decision of which branches to cut.
That distinction moving from personal failure to evolutionary necessity, that's the transition point. And, moving into the behavioral signals of this change. The sources highlight how quietly decisive this awakening is. It's not loud.
No, it's a shift in how you use your energy.
When you begin to conserve that sovereign energy, the first thing to go is drama. We see a sudden zero tolerance for drama, and you start to quietly walk away from people or places that drain you.
And the crucial detail there is that you do it without even needing to have a fight or an explanation.
Yes.
This is the mature stage of agency. When you're still seeking validation, you need an explanation. You need a dramatic exit to prove your point. But when you are sovereign, you realize your energy is a finite resource, and preserving it is paramount.
You just leave.
You just observe that a person or situation drains you, and you leave silently. You've accepted the loss of approval in favor of the gain of peace. The sword captures the result of this perfectly. The core sensation of feeling like you've suddenly outgrown your own life.
And that's not vanity.
Not at all. It's a spatial problem. The conversations, the expectations, the old social contracts, they feel too small for who you are becoming. It's like trying to wear perfectly tailored clothes from 5 years ago. They were great then, but now they inhibit movement and restrict your breath.
And to demonstrate that this feeling of emptiness, of being too small, is universal, even for the most successful people. Alia uses her own history as the ultimate case study.
Which is so important.
Because her life wasn't defined by failure. It was defined by just overwhelming, measurable success.
Exactly. She spent 18 years chasing what she vividly calls the gold stars of the external world. She didn't just get a degree. She got the doctorate, the master's degrees, prestigious board seats, international business awards. She built her whole career on high-level strategy and leadership.
So I think the real question here is, if external success is the goal, how does Alia define emptiness? After achieving everything society promised her, was this just burnout or something else?
It was profoundly philosophical. She says that after achieving the highest academic honor, after all of this quantifiable validation, she found herself standing on what felt like an empty road.
Wow.
Burnout is usually about physical and emotional exhaustion from overwork. Alia's realization was deeper. She had mastered the outside world, but she was starving for the world inside. The turning point wasn't physical exhaustion. It was the chilling realization that all the answers she sought about purpose and meaning, they weren't on the resume or in the academic transcript. The external ladder she had climbed so diligently was, she realized, leaning against the wrong wall.
So the emptiness was her internal self finally sending a distress signal.
A signal that had been neglected for 2 decades while her achieving self was being celebrated.
So she mastered being the achiever, the strong one, the perfectionist, and that perfection left her hollow. And that is the necessary bridge to understanding the urgency she identifies now.
Right.
This awakening isn't just about feeling better, it's tied to massive, accelerating external changes that are affecting all of us and eroding our collective agency. Here's where it gets really compelling, because Alia defines this internal awakening as the most urgent task we face right now. The motivation isn't self-improvement, it's self-preservation. She frames the need for sovereignty around the erosion of human agency, specifically mentioning the rise of artificial intelligence and seeing our rights and agency as humans eroding on a regular basis increasingly every year.
This connects that internal experience of feeling too small in your life to the macro need for human resilience. If we don't define ourselves internally, the rapidly advancing external systems, be they technological, societal, political,
It'll define us instead.
they will define us instead, usually for their own optimization. We need to analyze what agency erosion means in a non-political, systematic sense. Think about our reliance on algorithmic curation. Our decisions about what to consume, what to believe, who to connect with are increasingly mediated and optimized by external systems.
Systems designed to capture our attention and data.
Exactly. If you outsource your critical thinking or your ethical framework to an algorithm, you are passively sacrificing sovereignty. If we stop trusting our internal signals and only trust external data points, we stop being human agents and we start becoming inputs.
So the task she's defining is existential. Awakening our inner self, valuing our humanity, and taking back our agency as sovereign humans. It's an assertion that in a world valuing efficiency in data, the unpredictable, messy, intuitive,
The inefficient human element.
that it must be fiercely protected.
And that protection requires a rite of passage, which brings us to the powerful symbolism she uses for the launch of this project, the new graduation.
She announced she would appear in her first podcast wearing a white graduation cap and gown, but stressed that it was emphatically not for another university degree. That symbolism is potent. Why a cap and gown?
It symbolizes a commitment to learning, not from external authorities, but from the deepest self. It represents a different kind of graduation. University graduation signifies completing a curriculum dictated by external metrics.
Right, about mastering the outside world.
This new graduation is about the successful completion of the curriculum of conformity. The symbolic meaning is so clear. It's shedding the old identity that no longer fits.
The achiever, the perfectionist.
The good daughter, the strong one, and stepping across the threshold into who we really are. It's a deliberate, conscious rite of passage, a declaration that the old self, built on approval and performance, is officially retired.
And Alia drives the point home by giving this philosophical shift a hard stop date. She grounds it in a timeline. She says the last day of 2025 is the date she's setting for closing the chapter on looking outside for permission. That is a timeline for independence. The goal for this project is fundamentally about internal orientation. It's to stop chasing external accolades and instead start exploring internal potential.
Learning self-value and taking back power, like the joyful warriors we are, which I love. It shifts the definition of warrior from someone engaged in a struggle to someone who is asserting their existence through joy and authenticity.
That's the perfect synthesis. This deep dive reveals that the journey to sovereignty starts not when you fail or hit rock bottom, but often when external approval becomes utterly insufficient.
Even when those external achievements are the highest possible, the doctorates, the board seats, the business awards, the moment you realize that those gold stars do not fill the internal emptiness.
That's the moment you're ready.
That's the moment you become ready to claim yourself.
So, what does this all mean for you, the person who recognized those symptoms? The person who feels the discomfort of the old clothes and the exhaustion of the old roles? The journey starts with an internal act of claiming. We have to identify how we habitually wait for external permission. Are you waiting for your boss to validate your career pivot? Are you waiting for your family to approve your new boundaries? Are you waiting for a crisis to give you the mandate to act?
If that invisible backpack is still on your back, it's because you are holding on to the perceived safety of external validation. That backpack drops the moment self-trust outweighs the need for outside reassurance.
The core question posed in the source material is, have you stopped waiting for permission? If waiting for someone else's approval now feels like betraying yourself, like betraying the sovereign human you know you are becoming, what is the single greatest act of agency you are ready to claim without needing external validation? That's the specific, focused action that defines your graduation. Let's make this the year we finally graduate to our true selves. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.